All right, let's get this going. There it is. You get to see me, my behind the scenes of getting this going. There we go. Perfect. Okay. We're going to go ahead and dive in. Welcome to our November industry update. I am so excited to dig into the numbers with you guys. And I've been doing lots of studying up and I've got lots to share. So this will be fun. While we're getting started and people are hopping on, I want to hear from you. Just put in the chat box, what's it looking like for you in the market right now? Everybody's, pocket of business and neck of the woods can be different. So post in the chat how it's been for you lately. Slower, busier, normalizing. Have you seen like 1 month that was weird or things are different now? Just put in the chat what you're seeing. I want to hear from you. And while you guys are doing that, I'll just share for those of you that, are not as, let me let these people in the waiting room. Awesome. For anybody that's not, maybe you haven't been on a lot of these industry updates before, I'm going to share a little bit of like what my goals are and why we do these. And really it's about perspective, right? Perspective gives you hope, and it is so empowering to get clarity around the data and the knowledge of what's really going on, because we know that our past is a predictor for the future and we can empower ourselves with that knowledge. And so that's what this is all about. And even when the market is crazy, this has become a mantra that has empowered me and my own mindset so much. And I hope it can empower you too. It's a fact. The economy is always changing. We can't control it. And it does not dictate your success. It dictates your strategy and how you communicate. So don't allow the changes in the economy. Yes, things are hard right now, right? Things are challenging. We do have to work differently and work smarter and maybe be scrappier to get the business that we want, but don't allow the change in the economy to be your excuse for bailing on your goals or giving up or, saying that you don't want what you said you really do want, because that's just not the case. The business is here and available for you. All that it means right now is we've got to work smarter, right? We've got to work a little harder and a little different and shift and pivot and just be the type of person that's the whatever it takes type of human that says, you know what I want. There's still homes being sold every single day, and I'm the one that's going to go get it. Okay, so while we're doing that, like I said, put in the chat what you're seeing in the market right now. And then we're going to use this data to change our strategy where needed and pivot where needed. Let me check the chat. Let's see if it'll pop down. I guess it'll pop down in a minute. So as we're getting ready to dive into everything, these are the magic numbers that we really focus on and talk about during every industry update, because when you know these numbers as an agent and really just as an individual, you can use it to empower yourself. Like you could go Google at any time these numbers, like what's the current GDP today? What's the current inflation rate today? And empower yourself to know day by day what's happening in the market. Your magic numbers in our economy are 2246. 2246. That's what we're always looking for as like healthy, happy place in the economy. When we have GDP at 2%, inflation at 2%, real estate appreciation at 4%, and unemployment below 6%, everything typically is smooth and good, and we have a happy little economy. And it's when we get out of whack that can get funky. And so that's some of the numbers that we always look at so that we can be crystal clear on what really are the indicators of our market and how we can adjust. So the first thing we're going to look at today is GDP. Now, I don't have a new slide for this because, of course, they update GDP quarterly. But basically what you're looking at when you're looking at GDP is you're looking for, is the economy growing or contracting, right? It's the measurement of all goods and services minus the difference between imports and exports. And so that's how they measure GDP. You do want GDP to grow on an annual basis. That's how we get, like businesses improving, homes improving, employees being able to be paid more, because we do have growth in the economy. And that 2% number is exactly where we want to be. And we're really sitting right around that. As you can see, for the second quarter, we've been at about 2.4%. So we're continuing to grow. The interesting thing about GDP, I mentioned this on the last industry update, but in case you weren't on it, it's just good to know. September 20th, the Fed announced that They adjusted their forecast for GDP, and that it's at a solid pace and has done better than they expected. Meaning even though they've done, adjusted the interest rates and doing all sorts of things to slow spending, our economy is continuing to just proceed in a healthy way. And so because they announced that, generally we expect to see cuts in Q2 of 2024, so in the spring, and they're planning to in GDP language, they said they're going to proceed at 25 basis points per quarter to end with a funds rate at 3 to 3.25%, which is the rate that the Fed lends to the banks, which then affects what the banks lend to consumers, right? So that's where GDP is sitting at right now. Our current inflation rate is technically it just ticked down a smidge to 3.2%, but 3.2% versus 3.7%, it's holding very similar month over month. So not a huge change in inflation either. It's kind of just hanging out. Unemployment is the goal for unemployment, just so you guys know, the goal is to be below 6%. Okay. So as you can see, currently we're actually, this is for the end of the quarter of Q3. We were at 3.6. We're technically at 3.9% right now for unemployment, which in the world of unemployment, that is basically considered almost zero. It's almost like very low. It means that like everybody that wants to have a job probably has one, which is challenging for employers, right? It's challenging to find the talent that you might be looking to hire because everybody that wants to have a job has one. They're either running their own business or they're employed where they want to be. There's very few people out there that are in need of a job. So a lot of the numbers that you see there are just people that are not looking for a job, right? So interesting to see. Now, talking about the economy and other key things, National Association of Realtors put out some economic updates recently that I thought was really interesting and could give you some different perspective around what's happening beyond just, okay, inflation is hanging out, GDP is hanging out, right? So this was price growth by key items in our market. And as you can see, car insurance had an increase year over year of 16.9% in prices. Rent went up 8.3%. Food went up 5.8%. Electricity went up 5.4%. Lodging 5%, like hotels, Airbnbs. New cars 4.1%. Clothes 3.1%. Medical service went down 1%. Airfare I was kind of surprised with. Like I don't know about y'all, but I don't really feel like buying plane tickets is that cheap right now. But apparently it went down 13%, and gasoline went down 27%. So I wanted to point out in particularly the rent, because of course we will talk about that a little bit more here in just a couple slides, but that's really important for us to pay attention to, right? Rent is becoming more expensive, and that just contributes to some of the challenges that our buyers are seeing in the market right now. Speaking of annual apartment construction, this is also from National Association of Realtors. Annual apartment construction is at a 40-year high, meaning, they're building more apartments than they ever have in the last 40 years, which can anybody relate? I don't know about y'all, but oh my goodness, I feel like everywhere I look, there's a new apartment complex going up. Like they seem like that has like exploded, and rent has not calmed down. And so that's been an interesting situation that we're finding right now. A lot of that has to do with, funny enough, because of the buying situation for buyers, a lot of first-time home buyers are having to rent rather than buy, which is why there's so much demand. People are still renting even though it's expensive, and there's apartments going up that are being rented out everywhere. It's because the first-time home buyers in particular are being very challenged by the market and being able to get into the market. In particular, we're coming up right now where student loans are going to are coming due when they haven't been for several years because of COVID. And that puts more pressure on the situation, because a lot of those first-time home buyers, they're basically having to choose between paying student loans or paying a mortgage. And, it's forcing them to choose between the two. And a lot of them, it's just ending up making more sense. Well, the market doesn't seem friendly right now anyways. I've got this much that would be enough for a down payment, but let me go ahead and pay off the student loan instead, because, I'll save on all that interest with the student loans, and, I'll buy a house down the road and just rent, because I'm not saving that much money on a mortgage because of the interest rates. Does that make sense? Like that circle. So just an interesting dynamic right now when it comes to that whole sector. Oops, let me click there. There we go. The other thing I wanted to share that I thought was really interesting is home price change. So this is a map that National Association of Realtors shared regarding home price changes. So this map is in 2023. Feel free to take screenshots of these if you want. Like, I feel like these are super, the next one I think is going to be super interesting and important to think about. But this is for 23 from Q1 compared to basically current. And you can see we're in the blue, South Carolina and North Carolina, 4.5% and 3.9% price increase. But look at this next slide. This is home price changes in 2023 compared to 1 year ago. Holy smokes, right? Like, these are much bigger numbers, 12.7% in the Carolinas. And they have another slide, which I've got to grab and I'll send it to you in email when I send out this recording. But I didn't have a chance to grab it for this, but there's another slide they have as well, which is home price changes from 2020, from when COVID happened to today. And in the Carolinas, it's a 67% increase in home prices in South Carolina, which I was like, whoo, in 3 years, that is massive. Like, anybody that bought before 2020 is like, yeah, I feel great. But also that gives us a lot of perspective. And here's what I want you to write down. This is the question when you're looking at home price changes and the fact that from COVID to now, there's over a 50% increase in home prices in our state. What I want you to write down, write this question down on your paper. What are all these people doing with their equity? Because people have a slew of equity, especially in our states, 50 to 60% equity if they bought in 2020 or before. So what are people doing with their equity? Because here's the deal, y'all. Think about who you know that's a homeowner right now. Maybe they're not looking to sell their house or move. Even if they aren't going to move, because maybe they don't have to, or they don't want to, maybe they don't want to trade out the lower interest rate for a higher rate, whatever. Most people have so much equity now in their home that it is a fantastic time to be having conversations with people around investments. Because, you know, if you guys know, pro tip from any wealth building conversation from a successful and wealth builder is use your money to make you more money. And that's exactly the opportunity that homeowners in the Carolinas are looking at right now. If they purchased before 2020, I mean, really even, you know, in the last year, but definitely people that purchased before 2020, investment property conversations is where I would be leaning with them because they have so much equity. Why not harness that equity to help build more wealth and find investment properties that would be smart for them to do right now? So I wanted to make sure you guys knew that. Take some screenshots and I'll send you the other map that shows you the percentages from COVID to now, and go send that, you know, email that to your clients, text it to them, or just ask them, hey, what are you doing with your equity right now? I'd love to have a conversation about how we could empower you to use that equity to make you more money and build wealth for your family. Okay, so I hope that's helpful for you guys. I hope that's exciting. I got so excited about that thought because it was like, wow, it's just another way that you can work strategically with your clients, right? Okay, let's talk about mortgage rates, interest rates, all the fun stuff. This is a recent slide that was just put out by Keller Williams International a couple weeks ago. And you can see they marked interest rates in October, 7.4%. I don't know about y'all, but I saw it go over 8 several times when I checked. So we were in the 8s for sure for a 30-year fix. I suppose that would be the average, 7.4%. I just checked last night and it looks like right now, as of like yesterday, average for a 30-year fixed mortgage is sitting at 7.8% and around 7% for a 15-year fix. So, you know, sitting around, I feel like we're just kind of interest rates, you know, they were going up, going up, going up. They seem to be kind of hovering around that 7.5% mark now, which is not exactly where we want to be, right? And for those of you that maybe are like, you know, if you want more perspective around the mortgage rates, the interesting conundrum of all this is really the main lever that the Federal Reserve uses to speed up or slow down growth of the economy, right? Like, how much they choose to charge the banks affects how much the banks choose to charge to the consumer. And typically when they put more pressure on interest rates, it slows down spending. The ironic thing right now, which we'll talk about in a second, is they haven't seen the same effect this time around. The demand is still there. The need is still there. And the pressure that they're putting has not created the same positive effect that they would have seen in the past by just keeping interest rates really high. And that's why you're hearing from the Fed announcement that I mentioned earlier on the Zoom that they are not planning to continue to increase them because that's not the answer. And so the great news for us is that there's light at the end of the tunnel, and we're just getting for you a couple quarters of tough, where we got to work a little harder and help people in a different way, but it should get better soon. This is home sales monthly. So interesting thing to know about this, when you look at home sales monthly, of course, they only have the numbers out through September, but that number in September, 3.96, it's actually the lowest pace for existing home sales since 2010 on a monthly basis. 2010 was like when they hit the bottom of the bucket. I think it was like 3.5 million homes were sold that year. But 3.96 is the lowest for 1 month since 2010. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Of course, one reason is what we just talked about. Mortgage rates are high. That causes people to be more price sensitive to, there's people sitting out of the market right now for various reasons. But the interesting thing is, mortgage rates are high, home sales are low. Inventory also is extremely low, right? Extremely low. 3.4 months of supply nationally overall with inventory. It's not where we want to be to support our consumers. And yet still, with all of that, prices are still being driven up, right? Prices are not falling. And that's the conundrum that they've seen. Is like normally you would see if mortgage rates go up and, it should cause prices to fall and things should adjust. However, that's not happening because we still have very high demand. And I saw this great slide from KWRI recently. And I mean, yes, this is a little bit of common sense, but I think it's a great visual because it's like, well, why is that? Why is it not working? And it's because basically you've got, your sellers over here. If you have increased inventory, right? And decreased competition, meaning less buyers, prices are going to go down. We have decreased inventory, right? Not enough inventory over here, and increased competition, which means increased prices. And that is not going to change anytime soon because buyer demand will stay strong. And I'm just really interested to see what the spring market's going to be like once we get back to the sixes and interest rates, because that competition is going to become crazy again. So what you're looking at is high interest rates, yes, but there's not enough homes. So that's still putting pressure on prices, which is why you can be confident that home prices are not going to fall through the bucket. So then the question really becomes, what's it going to take to get the supply back out there that we need and get mortgage rates down to where people are more comfortable purchasing? I think a real sweet spot for us from everything I've heard from so many different economists is in the sixes, right? That's likely where we'll be able to hang out. And if we can get to the low sixes or the mid sixes in interest rates, we're going to see so many more buyers being more comfortable to purchase. And we're going to get there. It's just, what's it going to take to get there? A few other things that NAR shared recently on their economic report that's just good to know. Distressed property sales basically is like non-existent. As you can see, it's like nothing. And we should see that continue because of all that equity, right? A lot of times you see an increase in distressed property sales. So like 2008, right? There was a lot of distressed property sales because people's equity was lower than what they owed on their mortgage, and they weren't able to refinance and afford their mortgage payment. And so you had a lot of people going into foreclosure and that sort of thing. Right now, because there's so much equity, even if your home value were to drop, you still have enough equity that you could refinance and, you're not upside down in your house. So that's really going to be a non-issue of like needing, I know in 2008, so many realtors became like certified for distressed properties and made that a huge piece of their business. And that's not what we should see going forward. So just good to know. And they also did report, NAR also did report days on market is lengthening. And really what this is showing us is that we're going back to seasonality, which is a typical thing in the world of real estate. We haven't seen seasonality in the last 3 years or so because it's been so crazy, but we will see that again. That's a little bit of what we're experiencing right now. Yes, some of it's the interest rates, but also some of it is seasonality is showing back up in the real estate market in general. So that's just good to know. Now, in the background with all this, another interesting thing happened. NAR and the National Association of Home Builders sent letters to the Fed, basically asking, hey, can you can you tell everyone that you're not going to raise interest rates anymore? In a nutshell is what this letter says. So that's what they sent to the Fed to try to make an impact with interest rates. They basically are saying in this letter, hey, stop letting the mortgage-backed securities that you're holding go down. Tell everyone that interest rates aren't going to go up anymore, and stop letting the mortgage-backed securities that you're holding go down. Basically what that means for anybody that's like, mortgage-backed securities, what are we talking about? Here's what it means. Basically, there's a gap between the rate that the Fed charges to the banks, right? And the rate that the bank charges to consumers. The gap in the middle is where these mortgage-backed securities are affecting things one way or the other. And so based on what the Fed does with those mortgage-backed securities affects how the banks are able to lend. I know that's like kind of like complicated sounding, but that's the gist of it. And so I'm interested to see what happens with that. And because of all of this, there's some predictions that we have from NAR. So National Association of Realtors is predicting that mortgage rates should fall. They're predicted to fall. Oops, hold on. Let me let someone in that just came in the waiting room. There we go. They're predicted to fall between 6 to 7% for a 30-year fixed by early spring. And they're predicting that it's going to stay there. So that's really great news. You can see they're also predicting that rents will calm down. They'll stop raising the interest rates, and that's going to be huge. So, because here's the thing, right? I know I mentioned this, but again, if we can get to a good 6% interest rate or a low 6, and we can keep it there, that's going to create a rush of buyers that have not been willing or able to pay the higher rate. So one, I think that can be encouraging for you for the spring, as far as like, okay, people that have been telling you that they're waiting, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and we're seeing it more strongly predicted for early spring, which is great news. And two, this is, let me listen in the waiting room, multitasking. There we go. This is a great time to be having conversations with your existing buyers, because, you know, let's go back to that other, let me go back over here and go back to this other slide. This guy right here, right? Remember the competition. So if you have buyers that are in the market right now and they are shopping, you might want to talk to them about, hey, it might be a great time. Or maybe you have someone that's waiting, but you know, they like hate going into multiple offer situations and that sort of thing. Have that conversation. Hey, it might be a great time to get you out there before there's lots of competition, because in the spring, as soon as the interest rates fall, there's going to be a ton of competition. Let's get you in a home that you love before we're seeing all those multiple offers and competitive situations again. So right now, buyers have a lot more negotiating power because there's not a lot of buyers out there right now, and sellers are more open to negotiate. So it's a catch-22. It's, not for everybody, but I definitely think that this is a time to be having a conversation with more of your buyers about that, to say, hey, the end is coming. Interest rates are going to be changing. So do you want to wait and have a lower initial interest rate, but way more competition, and probably end up having to pay more on the home price in order to get what you want, which is ultimately going to cost you more in the long run, right? Because when you're paying that mortgage. Or do you want to go now and, higher interest rate right now? Yes, but have more negotiating power and less competition and more ability to get the price that you want for the house that you want, refinance, do a 5-year ARM. So you've got plenty of time to refinance and get that lower interest rate. And ultimately you save more on the house, right? So it's just some thoughts to be sharing with your clients right now that can empower you and empower them. The other thing that NAR shared was pent-up sellers. So they shared pent-up sellers cannot wait longer. What happens over the 2 years? Basically, look at this. This is so wild. Over the last 2 years, there's been 7 million newborn babies, 3 million marriages, 1.5 million divorces, 7 million people turned 65 years old, 4 million deaths, 4 million net new jobs, and 50 million job switches. Woo! That's a lot of people that are, if you remember us talking about the D's, right? Like, death, divorce, diapers, etc., dilation, all of those things are reasons why people are selling and moving right now, because they're reasons that they kind of have to. They need to make a move. Their family grew, they changed their marital status, they're downsizing, all of those different things. So those are the people right now that are like, we've got to make a change. We've got to make a move. And so again, if we get those rates to level out at 6% or close to it, some of these people are going to be ready right now just because of their situation. But also, these are all people that are pent up, chomping at the bit to make a move because of their situation. And so as soon as those interest rates change, Dr. Lawrence Yun, who's the chief economist for NAR, he actually said that he feels like 2023 is going to be the year that's like the worst of it. And next year is going to be huge and a very promising new year in 2024 for us in this industry. So that's exciting and it's going to be wild. So our job is to find these people, right? That's your job. And I want you to think about in your database, we've got to be more intentional with our database. Yes, like anybody that you think you can find that might want to buy or sell, great. However, it's not really the season where it's just about going on appointments and having meetings with just like anybody like that's out there that may be a client. This is going to be a lot more about like who's in your world that already knows, likes, and trusts you that's having one of these big changes. That's what I would be like mining for in my database if I were you. It's like, okay, who's in my sphere that's any of these changes? Those are the people that are going to be the most ready in the next coming months, most likely to make a change, especially as soon as those interest rates start to shift, if not sooner. So I would be really intentional with my time of not just like randomly calling through my entire database. That's good. But like, what if you got more strategic with your sphere and your database and try to figure out how you could communicate more frequently with these people and find them, because life changes, creates change and movement in the industry, and it's going to set you up for so much more success quickly. I hope that's helpful information for you guys. I'm so excited. One thing I think is just encouraging is that everything that is coming out with research and communication from economic leaders in NAR and just generally in the economy like of the United States, the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics and all that, is it feels positive. You know, yes, things are hard right now, but I'm hearing a lot of hope for the future. And I hope that that can empower you, that you're in the right place at the right time and you are aligning yourself to have massive success, especially right now. You know, this is the time where so many people are either getting freaked out, like, let me stop working my real estate business and go get another job, or let me like take a break for the holidays and regroup in the new year, or, you know, whatever. There's gonna be a lot of people getting out of the industry out of fear. Right now, when you double down on these strategies, you're going to set yourself up for explosive growth and taking so much market share in the new year. So I'm excited about that for you guys. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about with you guys today, of course, is the lawsuit. So I want to spend tons of time on this, but I do think it's important for us to continue to address and just be a support. You guys have already probably seen this FAQ sheet, but if not, take a screenshot of it. It's a really helpful sheet that was put out from Keller Williams on just how can you, how do you navigate this, right? And there's a couple of things that I wanted to share that I felt was encouraging and empowering for you and as an agent and just mindset wise, what I want you to be thinking around this lawsuit. First of all, I think, I don't know that I've seen it a lot in our office, but generally in the agent world, I've seen lots of agents like freaking out about this. And I just want to encourage you, like, you don't need to freak out. You know, first of all, just like John said at our team meeting, we're really well protected in the Carolinas by the way that our representation agreements are written and how compensation is worded in those agreements. So that's great. But on top of that, no matter what the verdict is, this is literally going to take like 6 to 10 years for anything to officially roll out. So it's not necessarily like, oh my gosh, this has happened and now we need to panic, right? It's not like that. This is going to take a very long time for anything to actually happen. And there's going to be appeals on appeals on appeals. And so for you right now as an agent, nothing has really changed, right? For you, it's business as usual, except that you're going to want to start educating yourself and preparing yourself. You're going to be ready to have conversations about it, because whether something is passed or not, the knowledge is still out there. And so you're going to find your clients, your sellers asking more questions about compensation, your buyers asking more questions about compensation, and they will probably be taking actions and making their own decisions regardless of whatever happens with the lawsuit, right? So you need to be prepared to have those conversations. And I think that looks like a couple different things. Number one, you need to be prepared to have very straightforward conversations with your buyers in how you get compensated and what you're asking and how you get paid. I really think one of the biggest things is like the time is leaving us where, somebody, oh, hey, will you show me some houses? Yeah, sure. Jump in the car. And you just start showing them houses. You don't sign a buyer's agreement and you just hope it all works out because you'll get paid when they buy a house, right? Maybe, but things could change with that, right? And so this is the time where you want to think about treating your buyer appointments like your listing appointment. So when you go to a listing appointment, right, you have a prepared listing packet, you sell your value, you discuss compensation, and then you decide to list the house, right? That's what it's going to probably start looking like for a buyer's agent too. You're going to prepare a stellar buyer's presentation packet, have an actual appointment with them, sell your value. What all do you bring to them that makes their buying process easier? Here's how you get paid. Agree on your compensation, sign it, and move forward working with them as a buyer. That's just really what is going to empower you as an agent moving forward to be able to confidently discuss that with your buyer and for them to understand, hey, here's all the different ways that I could get paid. Sometimes, right? The listing agent will share commission. That's great. Other times they won't. Regardless, this is the percentage that I charge my clients, you, in order to help you find the house and make this a beautiful, seamless process. How does that sound to you? Have that discussion so they're crystal clear of how that works, and have that agreement signed before showing houses. I would also recommend, this could be very easy to do, but like sit down and just brainstorm a list of tasks that you do as a buyer's agent and have it, put that list in a pretty sheet on Canva, print it out as a flyer and put it in your buyer's presentation. Sell your value. Are you just opening doors for them? Or are you doing so much more, protecting their, rights within negotiating on their behalf, being their, their liaison with the whole process, being their fiduciary? And what does that mean, right? Like really sell your value so it's clear of why they're paying you. And then the other thing, of course, is super important to remember moving forward now that we've got to be very clear on is there cannot be any talk of industry standards or percentage standards, because we all know, right? There are no industry standards. There's not a set commission rate. There's not a set amount of, let's say, apples that somebody will get paid, or that, sellers always pay this many apples to the buyers and the listing agent, right? Like we can't talk about any of that because there are no standards. And that's part of what got people in hot water, agents in hot water with this initially, was there was, unfortunately, agents that were talking about, this is the standard that is charged in the industry, or this is right. So we can't have any of that. You can talk about what your rate is, but it doesn't have anything to do with what anybody else's rates are or what anything is in the industry as a whole, right? Because as agents, we all charge our own rate, right? With that being said, I'm so excited because we are going to be kicking off a special training series to support you in how to have these conversations with buyers so you feel equipped and confident with the languaging and how to shift your business when you're working with buyers in a very on purpose way. So to kick that off, December 12th team meeting the topic is actually going to be a market of the moment panel, and it's going to be featuring agents that are stellar at this conversation already on buyers representation and how they talk to their buyers with collecting commission, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So don't miss that meeting. It's December 12th. Mark your calendar. That panel is going to be on fire and so timely to equip you right now. And then moving forward after that, that's just your intro, because then you're going to have a series of trainings happening all through the month of January around different pieces of that conversation, so that you're not just hearing the idea, but you're going to really be able to get into the nitty gritty. So by the time you get through that training in January, you're going to have a crystal clear, rock solid plan for how you talk to buyers confidently. And let me tell you, other brokerages are not doing this. You're going to set yourself up for so much success against your competition for how you can confidently work with buyers and have these conversations with sellers too. So I'm super excited about that for you guys. Okay, that's everything that I have for you guys today. We'll end a little bit early, but I do want to give you guys a chance to ask any questions that you have, or share any feedback or anything at all. Any questions that you guys have or anything that you want me to elaborate on? Oh, Alexis, good. She said, this is great. Love the information. I'm so glad it was helpful for you, Alexis. And I hope this empowers you. I will email out this recording as well, along with the slides. So you'll have that. And I know I say this all the time, but feel free, like, if you see a slide in there, like, for example, that map that I'm talking about the price increase over the last 3 years, print that out, laminate it, and take it with you to your appointments. It's really great to have visual resources for your clients to help them because, you've got to think about, as agents, we have so much more information than our clients do, right? Most of our clients, they're getting their real estate knowledge from, Facebook, the news, and maybe Zillow, right? That's about it. So that's what's so empowering about this, is you're able to equip and empower your clients with real-time facts, data, and knowledge so that you can set them up for success in this market, and set yourself up for success too. So you guys, happy Thanksgiving. I hope you all have an incredible Thanksgiving holiday. I know that you know this, I hope, but I'll just say it now anyways. I am just so eternally grateful for every single one of you. I'm so proud to be in business with agents that not only treat their clients with excellence, but lead their business with integrity. You guys treat each other with so much love, and our family atmosphere is just like none other. So I'm just grateful to be in business with y'all, and looking forward to 2024 and what we're going to create. And if you haven't already, reach out to me. I would love to have a time with you on the calendar over the next 30 days to grab 30 minutes and just talk about your business plan for 2024 and what that looks like in your strategy. So you guys are awesome. Happy Thanksgiving, and we'll talk soon. Bye.